This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It is Party Loaded. Welcome one and all to the show for the 13th of December. It's a Thursday night, recording slightly later than usual, but we got a big one ahead tonight. So my name's Luke Retallick. This is everything great in the world of video games being presented by our fellow hosts. We have Jam. Hello, Jam.
Yo.
Yo. We got Christian Paulson Brown. CPB, what's going on? Yo. We got Adrian Chia. Hello, welcome back.
Hello, human listeners.
Matt, Game Dad Diet.
Hello, ho ho.
What the fuck was that?
It was like
robot. It's bullshit.
No. We're getting into that season. It's Christmassy.
No, I get the ho ho ho, but Adrian was like going all like T1000 sort of weirdness.
Oh,
what's Christmassy
I am a Christmas
about?
robot.
Although I must admit, I just saw one of the nightly sort of news shows that do all the what you should buy for your kids for Christmas things, and I was shocked this year that they didn't have some sort of weird robot on display, because that's usually the thing around this time of year. Some sort of weird.
Have you heard about the little spiders that chase your children? Have you heard about this?
No.
I know this isn't very video related, but they're hilarious. They're these little like plush critters that look like spiders. They're called like Screamos or something. And they chase you.
Sounds like from Harry Potter.
Yeah, and the louder you scream, the faster they go, and they like chase you around the house. It's a real product.
Oh my god.
That's straight up something from Harry Potter.
You know,
I was
it does
expecting
sound
this
like
to be
that.
like, go to the pet store, buy some huntsmen, and just release them on your children.
Yeah.
I think they're called
This is
screamies.
Australia. Just run down the street
Screamers.
screaming, you'll be chased by a spider.
Yeah, absolutely. But Adrian, you've never sold me more strongly on a gimmick than that. It sounds amazing.
That is so good.
You've given him a new way to torture his kids.
Yeah, my kids. Got other people in the house to
Your
do that
wife.
with.
Oh, poor Lisa.
It's going to be hilarious. Well, that's all going to be fun and games. But yeah, speaking of fun and games, tonight, of course, is our penultimate episode for the year, where we are going to be kicking off our 2018 Party Favorites discussions. So we've got all of our picks, or, you know, in Matt's case, I think you've just, you know, bitten the bullet and given everything to Red Dead 2.
Yeah. I mean, the Game Awards did it. I'm convinced now.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I don't think you're going to keep that somehow. But anyway, but before we get to that, we've got a few other things to cover. So, quick roundup of gaming this week, because there's still some interesting stuff going on. So, what's everyone been playing? Let's throw to Christian first for a change. So,
Yes.
what's going on with you this week, man?
I picked up Smash Ultimate after and ahhing about whether I was going to. Yay! It's good. It's more Smash Bros. So it's nothing too remarkable to talk about. Anyone who's played Smash Bros before knows what Smash Bros is. The Spirit World thing, the World of Light, that's cool. That's what I've been spending most of my time doing. Is that like single player, big overworld map that you run around collecting spirits. Yeah, it's good fun.
Seems to be the most controversial part of the game from diehard fans, from what I've seen. So
Really? What
Yeah.
controversy have you heard?
just the World of Light sort of being, I don't know, like. Matt and I were sort of having a distant sort of Twitter conversation about this before, about Smash fandom just being real weird. So yeah.
Smash
I don't
fandom
know.
is weird.
I had actually seen some discussion about the ending of the World of Light.
Okay,
and a
no
lot of
spoilers.
people actually, no spoilers, but there's a lot of theorizing as to what it means.
Right.
So yeah.
Because I've heard some grumblings from like Smash Pros about Ultimate, but it's been like the tiny, most little minute things that they fuss about, nothing to do with like the modes. So they're saying like, oh, wave dashing isn't as good, and like short hopping's not as whatever, and that the dodge is too overpowered, blah 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 blah. But I haven't heard anybody complaining about like, World of Light. I think it's really fun. Like, it's so clever the way they theme all of the battles. So because there's like over 1,000 spirits, but they somehow manage to like theme every battle to the spirit. So for example, like I did Dr. Wily before, and so like the way they do Dr. Wily is you have to fight 8 Mega Man and then like in sets of 2, so 2 Mega Man at a time. And then once you beat all 8, you fight Dr. Mario. So just like cute little ways of like of using their existing pool of characters and items to like theme to other characters, and then you get the Wily Spirit. Yay!
Yeah, I saw that Dr. Mario has actually just become available again on the NES Classic Library too. So it's weird that you mentioned that. Coming up this week. Yeah,
I did bite the bullet and sign up to the online service, Nintendo Online service, because I wanted to play Smash Online. So that's the first game I've had to do that for.
That's how they're going to get you. That's exactly the game they're going to get you with. Yep.
And then the other thing I wanted to quickly mention, it's not a game, but it is game related. No Clip, which is the Patreon-funded video game documentary series done by Danny O'Dwyer on YouTube. He's just put out the Half-Life documentary that he's been working on for a long time now. So if anyone hasn't seen the No Clip documentaries, they're like really professional, well-edited, full-on documentaries. They're not like YouTube video essays. They're actually, he sits down with big names in the industry, travels all across the world to do the filming and everything. And so this is breaks down like the genesis of Half-Life and the impact of Half-Life on the current generation of game developers as well as fans. And then he talks to like Jeff Keighley and Vince Zampella, Corey Barlog, and Randy Pitchford, all these people that were involved in some way with Half-Life in its early days. Like I learned through the documentary that like Gearbox is called Gearbox because it's like close to a valve, like Gearbox and a valve. And because that studio was founded to work on the expansion content for Half-Life. So Randy Pitchford and Gearbox, their first thing was Opposing Force for Half-Life, and then Blue Shift. But then they actually had a huge falling out with Valve, and like they're on really bad terms. And Randy Pitchford still has like an open wound to do with Valve, and it's really interesting. Like he goes into the story behind the scenes. There's tons of gossip about the early days of Valve and what they got up to and how they were just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. But really good. I strongly recommend anyone who's got any attachment to to Half-Life. Fallout. Yeah, check it out. So No Clip. Look up No Clip and watch their stuff. They've also got other docs on like Doom and Warframe and a few other games they've done big documentary series on. So they're really good.
Yeah, the Doom one's awesome. And Adrian, I'll recommend the Warframe one to you. I think you'd find it quite interesting looking through that.
Cool.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Warframe. Fucking Adrian. You got me playing Warframe. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's next? I'm lying. I'm the Christian. I'm going to get him.
Yeah, I think when you do get Christian, he's going to fall pretty deep into that hole. This is one of those games, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, no, it was good. It was fun being able to be in a bit of a sensei role and teaching Luke the art of the bullet jump and how to navigate around. It was cool because we logged into a game together, and I just sort of followed Luke around on the map and tried not to kill too many things. It was like watching your son ride a bike for the first time. And I noticed that Luke was walking everywhere on foot, and I was like, hang on a minute, this is not how you play Warframe. And I did my best to instruct Luke on how to navigate around using the very fun traversal mechanics that Warframe is well known for. And by the end of it, Luke was hopping around like a ninja, so yeah, I felt it went well.
I think the game does a decent job of onboarding you as to the various different systems, like particularly the crafting and mod mechanics and stuff, but it doesn't really go through the movement stuff particularly well. So what you were showing me was like, I had no idea that was even a thing until you kind of started showing me the combos. So that was really interesting. Yeah,
no, it's good. I'm enjoying it.
This game, like compared to Destiny in particular, it's just like really like weird how mobile it is. Like the different combo maneuvers you can do just with the way that you traverse the map is something I've never seen in a game like this before. It's really detailed and quite amazing, actually. So
it's actually been getting used to, because normally in a game like this, and the closest thing to compare it to gameplay wise, like just from if you took a snapshot of the screen, is very much like the Mass Effect multiplayer when was it 2 or 3 that added that, Christian? Do you remember?
2, I think.
Well, that was 3. That was 3.
Three.
The one you like the Horde mode one.
Yeah. So Mass Effect 3 had that multiplayer mode. And it looks just like that when you get into it. So like the scale of the enemies, the size of the arenas, until you realize that you can like glide across half the map with just a few button presses. And it's like, oh, wow. And everything is quite fast. And it is a good sort of statement. And I know that on the website, one of their mottos is ninjas play free, which kind of fits the theme very well because you move around like a ninja. And it means that if you're good at the game, you never need to pay for any content, really. So it's quite good in that regard too. But yeah, I'm looking forward to you beefing up your gear and we can do some missions together and that'll be good. And the main reason I'm keen for that is, and why I'd like to get more people playing it, is because I actually hit a wall during the week where I got to a particular mission that I got stuck on because I couldn't do it alone. And it's a particular mission where you need to escort a piece of machinery through like a gauntlet of corridors with enemies shooting at you and at the thing you're trying to protect. But the way you actually move it across the map is it drains your shield in order to move. So it makes you very vulnerable to transport it. So you need to be on top of it or near it while it's moving. And as it's doing that, it's draining your shield. At the same time, enemies are shooting you. Then you need to run off and hide somewhere to wait for your shield to recover so you can go back to moving the machine.
Oh, wow.
But the problem is that if the machine takes too much damage, it explodes and you fail the mission. And I just couldn't do it alone. And I was like, oh, I need friends. I need someone to play
mechanically,
with.
that does seem quite tricky. So, yeah, cool. I'll definitely help you with that when I get to it. It's going to be a long run. I can see there's a lot of content in this game. It's going to take quite a while. So, yeah.
And even I am certainly no expert, and I've barely scratched the surface myself, even though I'm weeks into it. It's that kind of a game. But that's exciting because, there's just so much content to unpack and enjoy.
Yeah. One thing I discovered last night, just a little tidbit, which I thought was quite amazing. I've got one of those Razer Chroma keyboards that does the light changes and stuff, and some games actually react to it. The game itself is programmed to do it, like Overwatch being a good example. When you switch characters in Overwatch, it actually takes on the color of the character that you're using. Cool. It turns out it's compatible with Warframe as well. And even
really?
Even to the point that when you go to your main frame sort of like color change options, like how you can randomize or pick your colors and that sort of thing, each time as soon as I was hitting randomize and exiting out of the screen, instantly my keyboard would change to whatever color I'd selected for it. So
that's cool.
Didn't need to do anything myself. It was all automated. I was like, that is really rad. So yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know it did that. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it's real cool. So, all right, Warframe aside, I wanted to just have a quick mention of Red Dead Redemption 2 because I finished that game during this week, and by finished I mean completely finished the story and the epilogue stuff. And I had a couple of additional thoughts that are not related to any story spoiler stuff. But one thing I will say, and I guess this is probably a little bit of a follow-on to discussions that Matt and I have had in particular, is that I rate this game a fuckload higher now that I've actually finished it. Because I think that the second half of it is far, far better than the first half in almost every way. So, it is actually quite amazing. The story is really, really good. The ending is fantastic. The visuals and the characters, the side characters that get involved, and the missions and everything is just amazing from about sort of chapter 3-4 onwards. And Arthur Morgan in particular becomes a very, very compelling protagonist. So his journey is actually a lot more interesting than early on when he seems to be like a bit of nothing, like a bit of an everyman that doesn't really commit to one sort of way or the other. And in particular, one thing that really stunned me later on in the game was the music. So there's actually a few really big musical numbers that play during key scenes in the game, like sort of drawn out cinematics, that made me think, holy shit, the music in this game is actually a lot better than I gave it credit for initially. So yeah, just some additional thoughts on that. I think anyone who's tried, a lot of the discussion I've seen around Red Dead Online, particularly the detractors, a lot of it seems to be people who have sort of gone in, played probably chapter 1, 2, sometimes 3, and then fallen off it pretty hard. And while I don't sort of say that it is a good thing for a game to take that long to get people sort of invested, I will say that if you do cross that sort of point, you will find that you are rewarded for it. So that's kind of my final take on Red Dead 2. So, yes. Jan, what about you?
Interesting.
What's your week been like with the games? Yeah.
I haven't done too much. I tried a tiny bit of the Christmas event in Overwatch last night.
Mm-hmm.
New skin's cute. Apparently the new map is broken and they've had to remove it.
Oh, the Blizzard World one, yeah.
Yeah, people can't get out of spawn or something. I just saw that briefly a minute ago.
It's all the Christmas lights tangled up on the entrance.
Yeah. And I jumped into Sea of Thieves again with some friends and it was a lot of fun. I'm enjoying just dipping my toes back in, grabbing some loot and madly running from other players. So yeah, it's been good.
Nice. Matt, you've got some pretty big ones on your list this week. What have you been going on with?
I've been playing a bunch of Stellaris Megacorp.
Of course you have.
Which has been a lot of fun. Yeah, of course I have, right? I wanted to actually talk a little bit just for a second. I had said before, I think it was actually during one of my interviews before I was actually on the podcast proper, but I was talking about how I love role-playing in Stellaris. And just as an example, I went and made an empire. The first empire I went and made and played with in Megacorp were called the Rising Dawn Brigands, which are basically this criminal syndicate Megacorp. And so while I was making them and checking their different perks and everything, I was kind of getting this image for what they were like. And then I started typing up a description for what they're like and everything. And I ended up with this empire that value the ability to cheat and steal above all else. And that's how they go and vote in their presidents.
Awesome.
And started playing as them. And I love that, because when you actually start playing as them, it's like, okay, well, cool, I'm going to cheat and steal all these other empires then. And we ended up becoming the center of galactic trade in the universe, which was really funny. Like, yeah,
I trust those guys.
Trade in inverted commas.
But there's a huge amount of changes in the economy. It's insane. And my real love in Stellaris is playing the robots, and unfortunately, they've really suffered with the changes thus far. I love playing rogue servitors, which are basically these robots that were created by some biological race, and then became so powerful that they just started pampering that biological race all the time, and just kind of took over the planet. But their whole objective is to go out and start pampering all the other biological races. And so I love playing them, but they suck right now. It's really, really challenging to play them with the new economy. But yeah, the other thing I was playing, I played some Dead of Boy, also known as God of War. I'm pretty sure that's actually on the case, which is unfortunate because it's the wrong name. It's a good game, but the reason I played it was because I wanted to kind of inform my decisions for our party choices this year for awards. And I found it really interesting that a game that's so unimaginative game design-wise won Game of the Year. Because there's really not much to it. Like we were talking about the fact that Spider-Man didn't win Game of the Year because it's just kind of rehashing all that old stuff that other Spider-Man games have done. But I don't think that's actually fair, because the one thing that God of War does really, really well and is super imaginative and actually really well thought out is the axe return. And everything else is just basically, your typical hack and slash combat system. But the story is interesting. I kind of cringe whenever he's interacting with his son for the first half of the game. That seems to be part of the story, and they start to actually solidifying a relationship. It's really good. Like, oh, holy crap, that dragon fight. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but just holy crap. That was the fight at which, like, it ended, and I realized I'd been holding my breath for like 30 seconds.
Yeah. I
just started laughing because it was so awesome. So I certainly still, like, spoilers, I'm not picking it for Game of the Year, but it's good, and I'm certainly happy that it won over Red Dead Redemption 2. So congratulations, team.
That's the important thing.
That's the important thing. The important thing is that Red Dead Redemption 2 lost.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, man. So nobody's going to be happy one way or the other. There's going to be a group that is put out by however that goes down. Super divisive. It's interesting. Well, anyway, so speaking of all things divisive, let's crack on with some news.
Now it's time to hear some gaming news. Time for some gaming news.
All right, so Game Awards, we kind of touched on it a second ago. We had the 5th annual Game Awards, I want to say. So Jeff Keighley hosted the Game Awards and broke viewing records. I think they were up like, more than double last year's sort of online viewing records. Some of the figures came out today, and that they had a big spike last year because they expanded out into the Chinese market, and they weren't expecting it to grow quite as much this year, but they smashed expectations. It was really, really taken up well by the look of it. So good on them for putting on a big production. So Now,
It was very well put together.
yeah, like Matt and
Disappointingly
Christian
so,
and
actually.
Jam and I actually watched it all together and chatted while we were viewing it. Poor Adrian had to work, I assume. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wanted more
Someone's got to
Jam.
bring in the money around here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, production-wise, what did you guys actually think of the whole thing?
It was too
It was
good.
A
excellent
plus
this year.
plus.
Yeah.
I like my janky, embarrassing game awards with cringy moments. I missed
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I mean, they did have Crash Bandicoot.
That
Yes,
was
that's
awesome
true.
though. Crash was
Yeah,
cool.
what are you talking about?
Don't mock Crash.
I'm saying that was totally a callback to those cringy moments,
It
and it
was.
was
It
really
was-
funny for
It was the closest thing
was
to
well
that, and it was
done.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny when they brought Jeff Winger out on stage, or what's his actual real name? I forget. What's his
John
name?
McHale?
Yeah,
Yeah,
John
Joel
McHale
McHale,
out because he had a very, very bad reception sort of in one of the later Spike VGA years where he basically just came out on stage and trashed gamers for a good
Yeah.
part of the performance.
Wow.
So yeah, like we thought there might be some cringe with him, but no, he actually presented really well. So
It was
yeah.
good when he was like, I can't believe you guys had me back.
Yeah, exactly. It was hilarious. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that the cringe moments were kind of more just like human moments. Like, we had the awesome award presentation to Sonic Fox, who got up and basically started talking about how he thought it was awesome that he was up as a colored person and a furry and a gay person sort of winning an award. And,
It was so great.
Yeah, that was
It
awesome.
the
Yeah.
best.
that was awesome.
I love that.
We had the fantastic moment where the God of War voice actors got up and Chris Judge was basically doing the whole "read it, boy" sort of moments. And that was great. But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it to the extent that I've actually watched the whole thing 3 times now. So yeah, it was.
You're
it was great.
insane, so.
Oh yeah, but I got to enjoy it with my kids. That's a whole different experience.
Oh,
man.
okay, right, that's fair enough.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we sort of picked who we thought were going to take away each of the awards beforehand, and time has come to see how we all went. So Christian, you have the
That's
notes.
right.
So take it away.
I was tallying up the points live. So spoilers, you guys already know, but for the audience listening at home, so coming in on a tied last place, we had Adrian and Matt. They both racked up 26 points. That was from 6 correct guesses overall.
People
And
just can't
then-
handle us, Matt. That's all it is.
Yeah, I'd rather die with hope in my heart than live a fucking sellout.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. I'm with you there, brother.
He says
God.
after picking Red Dead 2 for Game of the Year for the awards. Both of you did, actually. But then next we had Jam sitting on 31 points with 8 correct guesses. Well done, Jam. And then after that, coming in tied second and first place, we have myself and Mr. Italic. We both scored 50 points with 11 correct guesses.
Yeah, I
So
think about
paddle-
halfway through we
paddle it back
realized
to
that we
us.
were going to stay tied for most of the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
you guys
the-
knew all the meta.
There
Well,
were three. There were 3 or 4 categories remaining, and I noticed that we'd picked the exact same for those remaining categories. So I'm like, well, we're tied.
Yeah. That said, we missed out on quite a few of the big ones. So
Yes.
Oh, there were a bunch none of us got.
Yeah, there were some big
This is
surprises.
Weird.
yeah.
And it was a bit strange that they announced some categories as the winners were accepting a different
Yeah.
category. But
Yeah.
that's probably my only complaint.
There was some very upset game devs that were on Twitter that were basically like, we had to pay for ourselves to fly out here for this, and we just sat in here and didn't even get a mention because their category was just, oh, by the way, this team also won this award.
Yeah, I think that's hugely unfair.
Yeah. The biggest problems with the presentation, I think, were exactly that. How some of the categories ended up being a footnote, which was disappointing. But overall, I think the pacing that they achieved between announcing awards and actually showing cool trailers and stuff was actually the momentum felt really good this year. Like there was always interesting stuff going on, and there wasn't like a low point throughout the night. It was always sort of action, action, action. And the guests and musical numbers and that sort of stuff I thought was fairly well blended throughout. They've just got to find a way to do that and still recognize all the nominees at the same time, because you're absolutely right. Like part of the pride and joy for a lot of these people who might not have that much of a chance of winning is seeing their name up in lights or at least being shown or discussed. So, and one of the weird things about that is that they start kind of giving awards away in the pre-show, which has always been an odd thing that they've done every year.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know
And
what's
there was
with
And
Better
clearly
awards
the
too.
winners know too, because they're right there off camera ready
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
walk
I
up and
noticed that.
accept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
some of the awards are actually wasn't Action Adventure Game of the Year or something like that? like
And
in the pre-show.
RPG as
Yeah,
well.
RPG,
It's
that's
like-
right.
These are big categories. Why are they in
Yeah.
the pre-show?
Yeah,
There's
that
the
was
esports
weird.
player got in the main show, but
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah, I think if they're going to have awards given out in the pre-show, I think it would be a good idea for them to advertise that fact before the event and sort of say these will be awarded during the pre-show, and tune in for the main show for these ones, like the main categories kind of thing, just so you get a bit of an idea. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, they can still do it. They just need to be a bit more transparent about it. But, look, I mean,
Yeah.
aside from those relatively in the face of everything minor complaints, I thought it was by far the best year of the show. Like, far and above, like, better than all the others that they've done previously, which is great. So, and while we may not entirely agree with some of the actual awarded winners,
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Poor
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man
Spider-Man
got
deserved
real
something.
Yeah.
Yep. I will say that one of the ones that Matt and I were in particular sort of discussing at the time, and that was announced with like puzzled sort of furrowed brows, was the best. Was it best soundtrack or best audio? One of the two. I think it was soundtrack.
Score/music.
That's the one. Best
It was
score/music given to Red Dead 2. Now, based on sort of what I just said earlier this episode, I will say, Matt, now that I actually do understand why it probably got it now. And while it may not necessarily be the runaway choice, I'm feeling much better about it now that I've finished the game and sort of experienced what it had to offer in that area. So, yeah.
Yeah, I still have issues with it, especially like I have no doubt that it picks up, but that just kind of I like consistency, and when it's not consistent at the start, like when the music and like I'm like 20 hours, 30 hours into Red Dead Redemption 2, and if I'm saying at that point that it doesn't deserve these awards, then clearly there's something going on with their production quality that apparently it gets so much better at the end that it's worth the awards. But I compared that to like Spider-Man, for example, where I went and actually watched a YouTube video of one of the key moments in Spider-Man. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I was sitting there actually getting choked up because of the delivery and the fact that that's consistent through the game. There's no point in Spider-Man where I'm like, man, this voice actor is shit, you know?
Yeah.
Or I'm just completely disconnected from him. Whereas Red Dead Redemption 2 has definitely had that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still not happy about those awards, but they're the only two that I really had an issue with.
With music in particular, I suspect that what quite a few of the people who are voting on them might have done is actually gone and just listened to the OST separate to playing it through the game. Yeah. And in that case, I think that they would probably get the best of what was on offer. So,
I think like to Red Dead's credit, it was definitely a unique soundtrack. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, apart from that, we had a whole bunch of game announcements and stuff. So anything that caught people's eye in particular, because there's quite a lot of interesting stuff.
Rage 2 won it for me.
Yeah,
that Rage 2 trailer
That was
was
top.
trailer of the
I
show.
was
Holy
laughing.
shit.
yeah,
It was amazing.
it was real good.
That's so good.
That's a highly anticipated game for next year for sure. So we got a date on that now. I think it was like May that they mentioned. I can't remember the exact
May
date.
14,
Yeah.
because
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
the day before my birthday.
That's right.
Pro tip to the listeners, you can send me gifts now. It's fine.
They have started accepting pre-orders for it, I think, off the Bethesda store. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, Christian, what about you? There was probably a few things that speak to your tastes that I saw popping up.
Well, the biggest sort of pop moment for me was Joker in Smash. That was so awesome. But that wasn't a game. That was just content for the games. I'm really excited for the Outer Worlds, which is the Obsidian Entertainment first person RPG. Where they very boldly, plainly state, from the original creators of Fallout and the developers of Fallout New Vegas, they know who they know, what to advertise from their legacy, and it's good timing, I think, for them to show off in front of the steaming pile of that is Fallout 76.
not to mention, I've been reading a bunch of people actually talking about what they've seen of the game so far. And holy crap, some of the systems in there sound so cool. They've got a perk system in there where if you've had enough negative experiences with a certain type of enemy in the game world, you can get a phobia of that enemy in exchange for experience points to spend on talents and such. Which is such a funny, neat role-playing idea. I love it. That's super cool.
Unless you get a phobia of everything and then you just become a useless gibbering wreck. You can't go anywhere or do anything.
But there's also there's stuff in there classic role playing stuff. They've brought back the dumb reply. So if your IQ or your intelligence is low enough, you just have an option in conversation where you can just choose the dumb option. And during some of the conversations they were showing off, it was so funny because all the characters are around you. You're their captain, so they're reporting to you, but you just kind of see it on their face, like, yeah, sure, boss.
That's awesome.
I was going to say the other game that I wanted to mention was Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey. Now, this is a game that I don't actually have heaps of faith in yet from what I've actually seen, but I like the concept. So this was Patrice Désilets' game. He was the original creator of Assassin's Creed back in the day, and he left Ubisoft to found his own studio, Panache Games, and this is the game that they've been working on for at least 3 years, and it's sort of about the humankind, like throughout time, where you start off as like an Australopithecus or like a Homo erectus or some early hominid, and you actually play through different chapters, experiencing the entire breadth of human history. And that's a really interesting concept, but I am concerned that the actual game won't be that polished or that fun, but it's interesting to see.
We were talking about it when we were watching, like, super Spore vibes from
Yeah. The one that caught my eye, like more than most, was Atlas. So that's the new one from the makers of Ark Survival Evolved. So this thing looks like another massive open world survival sort of MMO, but this one's got fantasy monsters and like armored up knights on horseback and pirate ships and all sorts of crazy shit. And they were talking about the size of the servers. And how many players can Ark servers have on them currently, Matt? Is that like
It's like 25 or 30, yeah.
Okay, so this one, apparently a single world can have 40,000 players in it. It's like, holy
shit.
moly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's launching in early access on PC this week. I think it might actually be today or tomorrow. 13th rings a bell. So yeah, and it's going to be on the Xbox One preview program next year. So I don't know if it follows the trajectory that Ark did. Like early on, it's probably going to be pretty rough, but yeah, they certainly have put a lot of work into that game, and this seems like their next baby. So I'm curious to see how that pans out. It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
I genuinely question how much of a good idea it is to have 40,000 people on one server, because I'm pretty sure that World of Warcraft servers have 10,000 people or something like that per server at a time, or something like that.
There's got to be some sort of trickery behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like, I doubt that 40,000 people couldn't all converge in one place. They'll be sharding them or instancing them somehow.
You have 5 people converge in Ark, and the game just turns to shit.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. It might be maybe geographic instancing, so where they actually split up the game world onto different servers depending on where you're located, and as you traverse, you maybe load onto different ones. But I don't know. You're right. There's got to be some trickery. That. Yeah. So I don't know. And we had a fairly interesting Mortal Kombat trailer for Mortal Kombat 11, which is one of the big reveals of the night. Any Mortal Kombat fans here?
I mean, I liked it when I was a kid, but I'm not interested in playing it anymore.
Yeah, I think I'm less interested playing it after seeing that trailer, personally.
You know what Mortal Kombat's good for is watching it on YouTube. That's what Mortal Kombat is the best for.
That's true. Yeah, I think so. But
that Mortal Kombat trailer was more cringe than Crash Bandicoot was, quite frankly.
Yeah, it was trash.
I would tend
Why
to
are
agree.
you throwing shade on Crash Bandicoot all night, Matt? What's going on?
Not cool, man.
Crash Bandicoot was fun cringe, okay?
Yeah. At the end of the day,
understand.
as much as you may or may not be a Crash fan, at least it's not as cringe as some of the Sonic stuff we've seen this week. I mean, oh my god.
Oh,
no.
Yeah.
No,
We don't have time to cover that tonight,
proportion Sonic. No.
So yeah. All right. So yeah, Game Awards, lots of fun. So the other thing that happened around the same time, so a couple of days later, I was the Kind of Funny team did the Kind of Funny Games showcase. So they selected 69 games that were submitted to them from devs across the world. Yeah, I know they actually nailed the number. It was really good. I think I was actually thinking, who did they cut? Who was the last game that they cut just so they could land on that? So, but yeah, like whole bunch of indie games. They had some slightly bigger ones as well. There was an Anthem sort of segment in there with a bit of new footage with some director's commentary. A lot of very, very interesting looking indies though, from, very basic sort of JRPG style ones to some gorgeous looking sort of landscapes, and some interesting ideas too. There was a weird JRPG, the name that I forget, which was based on like young snipers. So kids growing up in like a military institution, becoming snipers and getting involved in this weird sort of political sort of struggle. It was bizarre. You should check it out. But the one trailer that I think sort of stuck out amongst most of them was Sega that actually came to the party with a full trailer for their new, previously known as Project Judge, now called Judgment, which is the new game from the creators of the Yakuza series. So I don't exactly know if the protagonist is a detective or a lawyer. I get the impression it's like a barrister or something.
Former lawyer turned detective.
That sounds about right. Yeah. So, lots of action. Still, still has Yakuza involvement because it's still, Japanese street crime. It is set in Kamurocho as well, I believe, which is the setting of the major Yakuza games previously in that franchise. But there's some interesting choices for the voice cast, and I don't know who he's playing, but Matt Mercer was named as one of the voice actors in this game. So definitely some Western big names for the Western version of this game. Apparently, you will have the option to do dubs or subs when you actually play, so you'll be able to get
the Japanese version has huge names too. So I can't remember the guy's name, but the main character is voiced by like the biggest male actor in Japan. Like he's called like the Japanese Tom Cruise. It's like they've got him as the main character. So yeah, big names all around.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's anything like the Yakuza games, I'll be playing this one like day one because they are real fun. So
it is very similar. I listened to a podcast that covers Japanese games quite a lot, and because the games are already out in Japan, and it is very similar to the main Yakuza series. So you'll definitely like it, Luke.
Yeah, sweet, nice. Yeah, so, I mean, I got a bit of a theme throughout the rest of the weekend, like the Game Awards and the Kind of Funny Games Showcase in particular, that there was a couple of big winners and losers as far as larger companies go. One big loser appeared to be Steam, because not a whole bunch of stuff was mentioned with Steam next to it. One big particular winner, though, appeared to be Epic Games. So,
yeah.
And
they have some announcements in the last, it was just today, I think.
Epic Games, they haven't done anything noteworthy recently. Jeez. Are they even making the news? Sure.
So the thing that they announced is actually really, really good for devs. So they've actually announced that they're providing cross-platform tools for developers. And this all seems to be very, very closely tied to their storefront. But basically, they're providing SDK inside of Unreal and as a Unity integration, so it's not just for the Unreal Engine. You'll also get the benefit if you're using Unity to actually do cross-platform logins, friends, presents, profiles, entitlements. There's a PC and Mac overlay, which is definitely very Steam-esque, so that's totally store-related.
Yeah.
Cross-platform voice communications.
That's awesome.
Like, that's amazing. Parties and matchmaking, data storage, cloud saves, achievements and trophies. Like, holy crap. Like, this is actually really exciting. When I first heard about it, I'm like, oh, that's neat. But then the more I started actually reading into it, it is insane. Like,
it's Christmas.
It's Christmas. It's developers' Christmas. It's basically like we were talking before about it's going to be very easy to convince developers to go over to Epic. But what's going to convince them to only be on Epic, right? And if they have the ability to do cross-platform stuff and Steam isn't providing them with those tools, and they really want to emphasize a cross-platform experience, which, let's be honest, a lot of big games are actually really pushing for that right now, there's very good reason to not release on Steam at all if Epic is giving you the tools and you have to use their system, but Steam's just not, right? Like, yeah, it's really, really exciting. And the fact that we are actually going to have some way of, okay, well, they're playing on the Xbox One, but I'm friends with them and I'm playing with them on my PC through the Epic Store interface. Like, that is super, super exciting stuff.
It's like Christian was sort of pointing out last week, like, all of this stuff sounds great for devs, but where's the incentive for consumers? This is it, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. This is where it's going to play.
It's basically putting the tools in devs' hands to provide the incentives to consumers.
Which is super cool. So, yeah. Speaking of super cool, Christian?
Yes, one more thing. Some Monster Hunter World news. An expansion's been announced. So this is the first full-fledged expansion. It's called Iceborne. It's coming out next year. And it's going to have a bunch of new monsters and weapons and quests and environments. And yeah, it's all ice-themed, cold-themed. So definitely going to... I've been wanting to get back into Monster Hunter World at some point because I do love that game a lot. and that'll be my reason. Will be this expansion. I'll get back into the swing of it.
Ice snow theme. This seems like the Adrian expansion to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think I mentioned in our little WhatsApp chat, but there is a monster type that has been absent from What's Underworld, and that's like the giant enemy crabs. So if they manage to, combine Iceborne with giant crabs, I mean, we've got a winning combination right there. I'll just play the game in the nude and be quite content.
Careful, you might get crabs. All right. So, all right. Well, all that news aside, of which there's still a bit at this time of year, shockingly so, but we might see some slowdown after this week. Who knows? But it doesn't matter because it is time for our 2018 party favorites. Now, this is the first part of our party favorites. There are 10 categories we're going to be covering over the course of tonight and next week as we wrap up the year in video games. And 5 categories tonight, 5 of us hosting to present them. We're going to have a good old chat about some of the things that have stuck out to us in various different ways, shapes, and forms. So now the way this works is that unlike what a lot of the other sort of major media outlets do at this time of year, where they have sort of big teams of people that play video games for a living and get to do it all day, every day, in theory, and can objectively sort of have detailed discussions on which games are the best in various different categories. We are very specific in terms of our tastes and our likes and the amount of time we have available to do that kind of thing. So ours is an entirely subjective discussion. So all of the things that we're going to be talking about are not the best of 2018. They are our party favorites. So the things that we in particular, each one of us, have actually struck a chord with throughout the year, and for whatever reason, they've really, basically harmonized with our likes when it comes to these different things. So we are going to kick off with Adrian tonight. So take it away. What's our first category, Adrian?
Yes.
What are we discussing?
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing our first category for the evening, favorite character. So this could be a character from a game that we've played this year, obviously in 2018, and it can be really justified for any reason that you see fit. So you might like the character's design, you might like the way they look, you might like the way they play, if it's a mechanic, etc. So maybe we'll start with Christian. What was your
With me.
favorite character?
My favorite character of 2018 was Kratos.
Hey.
Kratos.
Yes, and this is partly because of how big a turnaround the character of Kratos has made in my mind. So I did like the old God of War games, but Kratos was never a part of why I liked him as a character. In fact, I hated Kratos. I thought he was a poorly written and just an awful person. He was like a murderer, and he would just kill innocent people all the time. I just said, Kratos was a bad dude.
Two-dimensional rage monster, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a two-dimensional rage monster. But the turnaround in this year's God of War was just amazing, and how they actually incorporated that legacy of violence into the story of God of War, and how he's so much more of this quieter, more somber character. The rage still comes out, but he's half defeated, and just this journey he goes on with his son, and the bond that he struggles to form with his son through the game. And I just was really impressed with the writing of Kratos, the voice acting of Kratos, and the entire package. I thought is a really impressive character.
Yeah, I would agree
Cool.
with that.
I'm going to piggyback off that because I also picked Kratos. But I didn't have the
Yay.
background. I hadn't played previous God of Wars, and I've still only played maybe 10, 12 hours of this one. But even when he's not talking too much, I immediately understood there's this powerful person dealing with something he's not used to dealing with, while at the same time trying to put this other creature first. It was fascinating, and it was why I chose Christopher Judge for, I thought he'd win Best Talent at the Video Game Awards, because he manages to do so much with so few words in some of those scenes. I just thought it was amazing. I need to get back to that game.
Yeah.
My runner-up, of course, is Shax. I'm not abandoning Shax. He's still in my heart. I miss him dearly.
So I'm going to challenge you on this, Jam. What has Shaq's done this year in particular that's really stood out to you? I'm curious.
I mean, I revisited Destiny earlier this year, and I just realized that one of the few things, when I started playing again, one of the few things that I had missed was him telling me how amazing I am.
So
Personally.
I will totally argue on your behalf, Jam, because Shax is my character of the year.
Yay!
Yes, he is. So I actually chose Shax because he highlights something I've seen happening in Destiny 2, which is that Destiny is doing a lot more to embrace its characters that are kind of off to the side. So I was almost going to choose Cade 6 because it felt appropriate. But I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, as much as his death this year was impactful, like, Shax is a character that has gone from being just kind of this NPC that gave you access to the Crucible to being an NPC that people love and want to learn more about. And Bungie's been providing that. Mind you, most of it's through their grimoire cards and such. There's some stories in the grimoire cards that are amazing and really funny and just kind of highlight what sort of character Shax is. But in the actual game itself, like, they're finding all these things that have been in there for a while. Like, if you get a 40 kill streak in the Crucible, I think, there's no trophy for it. And so Shax is basically like, oh, nobody's ever gotten this far on a kill streak before. I don't have anything for this. Give me just a second. And you hear him, like, ruffling around in the background. And then he comes back and he's like, I made you this, Guardian. And, like, this trophy pops up with this badly drawn, like, smiley face. And it's like it's all actually framed as, like, you know, there's actually an error in the game because there's no award for this many kills, right? But they've gone and made this really sweet little thing for Shax as this little character moment that is just so cool. And I think that's Bungie has a real habit of, like, characterizing their announcers, right? Like, even back in the Halo days, their announcer was one of the best parts of Halo.
Yeah,
like Kilimanjaro. Like, but they've taken that now, and I think they've realized that people love the announcer in a big way, and they've gone and put this character onto it and just made it so much fun to go and play Crucible. And, like, Shax is wholesome. Like, he's this total badass, but he's super, super wholesome. He cares about his Guardians. And I'm talking about a freaking announcer for a PvP combat mode, right? Like, Shax just is super cool. And, Bungie has been realizing that they should really be putting the spotlight on some of their side characters, because, you know, we've got him, and I forget the name of the new guy that they've got for the other game mode, but he's also, like, just this really interesting character with a lot of backstory, and he's kind of this NPC on the periphery. Like, he's not super important to the core story, but
is that the Gambit guy?
Yeah, the Gambit guy. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's the main reason he's my favorite. Like, I was actually very close to picking Kratos other than Cade 6, because I was playing the game, like, those first couple of cutscenes, like the very first cutscene where he interacts with his son, or one of the very early ones, you see him kind of reach out to touch his son's shoulder and kind of stop short, and that's all you need to know about how he's feeling, right? He doesn't know how to interact with his son, and that's not just the delivery is great, but the animation and the framing and everything around that character is freaking fantastic. So I cannot argue why Kratos is also a good character, but I had to choose Shax because it's a character that's gone from being just an announcer to being something that people love to see more of. So yeah.
Yay!
Well, speaking of cold
I was just going to say,
men.
Jam and Matt, I feel like you've made the case really well. Yeah.
My character is also quite cold. In fact, some might say he's a rose frozen in ice, which is one of his opening lines. And it's my favorite character of the year is Tundra Man from Mega Man 11.
Of course it fucking is. Why am I not surprised?
He's fabulous, guys. He's fabulous. He's a robot that was originally created to help study, like, weather phenomenon in, like, Arctic areas. And then he watched a figure skating competition and he's like, I want to be that. So he just became, like, a figure skating robot master, and he's fantastic.
That's
I don't
amazing.
know what else I can say about it, really. I mean, he's when you fight him, he skates on ice, and there's, like, a spotlight that shines on him, and the whole time he's fighting you, he's like, declaring how fabulous he is. It's just fantastic. He's the best. Like, Shax, whatever. Like,
Wow. Wow, screw you.
Cuts deep, man.
yeah.
Oh,
That's really it. There's not much more to it. I really love his design as well because he looks like he's wearing like a figure skater outfit. And I just think it's really unique amongst like all other Robot Masters. They're themed around their like element or their gimmick. But Tundra Man has like a double gimmick where it's ice and figure skating. So it's fantastic. I just love him.
That's pretty awesome. I haven't actually fought Tundra Man yet, but now I'm going to have to go in and do that. I didn't finish Mega Man. I've got to go and do that. That's,
Yeah.
All right. Well, before I say mine, I'm just going to very, very quickly throw a challenge to Christian. Because Christian mentioned during the week that he thought he might know who I was going to pick. So what do you think it is, man?
Oh, I think I do too.
I think it's Sadie from Red Dead 2.
Yeah.
Now, that's what I thought you were going to say. And you are incorrect.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so Sadie Adler from Red Dead, fantastic character, really awesome development, and the fact that she's, sort of like a downtrodden, essentially a widow who sort of comes back from that and becomes like one of the most like absolute brutal, agents of
No
reckoning.
spoilers.
Okay. She earns her place in the gang, is all I'm going to say. So.
Okay.
But no, I have a slight confession to make.
Luke. It's the new Sonic. That's who you picked.
No, most definitely
You saw that poster of him like with his
How could you
blue
even joke
unshaven
about that?
legs.
I have a slight confession to make. I've actually cheated with this category. I haven't picked one character, I've picked two. But
I got in
Luke,
trouble last year so much for not picking.
I actually have a good reason why. The reason why is because I consider these characters to be two sides of the same coin and they cannot be
who is it?
separated. So my pick for favourite character this year is in fact Brock and Sindri from God of War. So the two dwarf brothers who are the shopkeepers in the game. Yeah. And that is why they go together because they very much are like I almost see them as a single character with sort of the two sides of the same persona. So you actually get introduced to them fairly early on in the game and they just pop up freaking everywhere. And every single time you encounter one of them, it's usually sort of alternating between the two of them. And you get a little bit more of the story as to how they've had a massive falling out, how they fit into the world prior to all of the current events and the gods sort of leaving, all of the sort of realms and that kind of thing. And they've each got their different sort of eccentricities as well. Like Brock's like an absolute sort of gruff, messy dwarf, very stereotypical, whereas Sindri is this absolute neat freak and he's OCD about the way he does everything. And they basically, they criticize each other's work as well as you're sort of taking your axe to get sort of mended and fixed by each of them. They're just constantly giving each other shit as they talk about what's been going on with your weapon. But just the way that dynamic sort of interplays, it's like you're visiting the same character each time you go to that shop, but seeing a different side of them, despite the fact that it technically is two different characters. And it was just some of the most rewarding dialogue in that entire game. Every single time I went to the shop, you can repeatedly interact with them too. Like it's not just one interaction each time. Like there's usually several lines of dialogue you can get if you keep on sort of, prompting them. But man, some of the best story moments in that game are actually with the shopkeeper. It's amazing how they've managed to do that. I had a smile lit up on my face every single time I got to go to that shop and actually interact with them. So they're my pick this year for sure. It was.
I will be fair. Having seen Brock and interacted with him a whole lot, quite frankly, he should have won Performance of the Year.
Have you spent much time with Sindri?
I have spent some time with Sindri, but Brock just he's this. The fact that he's constantly cursing is really funny.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Uncouth.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right, well, can I lead off with the next category then? We're all wrapped up on that. So, best character.
Yeah.
All right. So, next category we're going to go to is favorite setting. So, this could be an entire game sort of setting. It could be a particular playground within a particular game. It can be like one zone or world or level. It can be any of those things. So whatever's struck a chord with us. So setting can encapsulate the elements of artistry with the graphics and the visual design that's gone into things. It can be the audio sort of that supports that. It can be a whole mix of all of those different aspects. So we get to talk about some of our best moments sort of inhabiting those game worlds. I'm going to throw to Matt first for this one. So, Matt, what was your favorite setting of 2018?
But despite what it says on the sheet here, it is not Red Dead Redemption 2. I went with Marvel's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The game is a love letter to all things Spider-Man, and it's like this beautiful blend of the comic and movie universes with an older and wiser Peter Parker, and you just feel heroic being Spider-Man, and like that. It's all lifted up by this incredible attention to detail, like the fact that if you knock somebody off a roof, they are not going to plummet to their death. They get webbed to the side of a building because canonically Spider-Man's going to attach something to them that will suck them to the side of the building, right? Like, and unlike Spider-Man, unlike Batman, I should say, Spider-Man feels like he always pulls his punches in every single fight he's in. And that's something really unique. Like, you feel powerful and heroic being him, but you feel powerful and heroic because of the fact that he always is trying to make sure that he's not going to end out brutally murdering somebody. Even the big villains that he has very good reason to hate. Like, at no point does it feel like, wow, Spider-Man, you probably just killed that man. Whereas with Batman in the Arkham games, I always felt like, he's like, I don't kill people. But then you're beating the shit out of people and the sound effects are like, yeah, you just broke that dude's spine. Yeah. He's not dead, but he's not walking, right? Whereas
not
Spider-Man,
dead, but on the inside, he's dead.
Yeah. Spider-Man, I've never gotten that impression. I always felt like he was pulling his punches, and like that just fit into the setting overall. Like there's so much in that game that I love to explore, and seeing people on the street interacting with you. Just as a game world, everything's been thought out. All the characters are super interesting. There's nothing in there that I didn't adore interacting with. So, yeah, that's Spider-Man for me.
Being able to walk up to someone on the street and high-five them, that was a particularly nice touch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice. All right, let's throw to Adrian. What do you got?
My pick for favourite setting is Monster Hunter World. And I was thinking about it when I wrote it down on the sheet, and I think the best way to put it is I bought a PS4 Pro to play Monster Hunter World. And that was after watching some videos and seeing some of the design of the game. And I think that's like the most salient way I can describe it. So, it was enough to encourage me to pick up a PS4. And then when I started playing it, I was immediately drawn into that world and loved it. I love all the different areas that you explore, especially, I should remember what it's called, the Coral Reef, is it?
I can't remember what it's called either, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be called the Coral Reef or something like that. But Coral Heights, something like that. Yeah. But that is beautiful, and I love going there. All of those different areas, even the most basic one, which is sort of a tropical island-esque kind of area, they all engage me every time I jump into that game. So that's what I really liked about it. And it gave me a real true sense of escapism when I was playing it. So that's why it's my pick for best setting.
Really good use of the 3D nature of those settings as well. In particular, that coral one with the different layers and stuff. Yeah, I can see why you picked that. That's a real good choice, man. Nice.
Yeah, yep.
All right. Jan, what about you?
Me. Well, I did pick Red Dead Redemption 2, Matt, but Spider-Man was a very close second. And RDR 2 won out for me because it wasn't just a beautiful setting, because the environmental work in it is gorgeous. I just love wandering. That's no surprise. The way that they've filled the world this time around, there's so many creatures flitting about you and running around your feet, and there's all of these incredible weather effects, and then the period, they've really nailed the way the characters look and feel. I love the accents that they use. I feel like I'm drawn into the world because they've got this cohesive whole in the way that they've displayed everything. Even to the point where the NPCs feel like, in a lot of instances, they're living their lives. Like, they're not throwaway lines that pop up as you walk past. It just feels like things are happening, things are getting constructed. NPCs' stories are progressing incidentally. And then there's the challenges of the time and the lack of technology, or the introduction of technology. It just all feels so well done that I'm transported back there, and I just think that's really special. And that's why it won out for me.
Nice. Oh, Christian,
how dare you?
What do you got?
I dare.
My favourite setting is actually the same as Adrian's, Monster Hunter World.
No.
For the very similar reasons that Adrian stated. I just found it pure joy to inhabit that world and just to walk around in the marshes and the swamps and that it's called the Coral Highlands. I looked it up.
Yeah,
and that Coral Highlands area and it just felt so alive, and I really felt like a hunter going out on an expedition to chase down these giant monsters and having other people inhabit that world with me. So when we were playing multiplayer, Adrian and I spent a lot of time like duoing in that game, and having somebody else sharing that world too just makes it feel extra alive. And
you know what I just realized? Sorry, Chris. You know what I just realized as well that makes it so good is that when you think about the way the game is structured, it's not like other games where you move through a world. So the fact that it's such a strong setting based on the fact that each of the locations you visit is like an isolated destination. So it's like visiting an area on a map. You don't travel there on foot from your current location. And I think to have that and still have it succeed so well as a setting, I think is a real credit to it.
Each area is basically like a giant arena that's been specially crafted with pathways and levels and traps and everything. And each area, I think, is a finely crafted like arena, and the detail that goes on in the background and in the interactions between the monsters and the smaller animals, and it all just really feels alive, and I love that world.
Yep.
Nice. Well, I deliberated for quite a while on this one because there was a couple that I really, really was a big fan of. I nearly went with the Dreaming City, which is the new zone in Destiny 2 Forsaken. So that'd
be a good choice.
Yeah, that area is very. There's a lot of mystery about it, and I like the fact that as you explore the Dreaming City, there's a lot of things you don't quite understand when you go in there, and there's a lot of secrets that you need to discover by doing weird sorts of questy things in that area before you uncover them all. But the one I went with as my winner this year is actually from God of War, specifically Midgard. So Midgard is kind of the big starting realm that the majority of the game is played in. So it's for Midgard traditionally is Earth, but in this case it's kind of like a Norse sort of version of Earth, like an old sort of Viking Age kind of incarnation of it. But the thing about Midgard is that it had a lot of different sort of varied areas that made the whole zone very, very interesting. Like from the Wildwoods where you start off and you actually sort of go through and, as you're sort of teaching Atreus to hunt as Kratos, and, all of the flora and fauna is very mystical and almost elven in its appearance and beautiful and, very floral, to, getting out into, the rocking areas and your journey up the mountain and, through the forgotten caverns and all the relics of an age-long past that sort of reside in there. But the thing that really sort of brought it all together was when you actually end up in the middle at the Lake of the Nine, where the World Serpent is, and a lot of the open world sort of sections of exploring go. The mechanic with the Lake of the Nine in particular, that throughout the rest of the game opens up more areas of terrain for you when you complete various different steps, which just blew me away. It was so amazing how they actually sort of staged that and gated the content in a really organic way that made sense with the terrain, as opposed to sort of just unlocking doors in a real sort of physical sense. I thought it was just an absolute masterstroke how they did it. But that combined with the rousing sort of soundtrack behind it, the visuals of the camera work where there's no cutaways, and as you're transitioning from scene to scene, they don't actually break from that transition at all. Like the loading is hidden behind you sort of lifting rocks to sort of move into the next section, or other sort of clever cinematic tricks. The whole thing just blew me away. So my favorite setting, Midgard for sure, was awesome. Real good one.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. What's the
That's
next
everyone,
category?
is it, for setting?
Yep.
Cool. So I will take the next category. And so we have a new category this year, which is back catalogue favourite. Now, this has been put in because while there are plenty of amazing games that we all played in 2018, I think all of us go back and play some older games too, whether it's just stuff that's been on our pile of shame or stuff that's been recommended to us, or like ongoing games that have been out for a while that we never really got into. I think it's really good to have some time to point out and appreciate some older game that we had failed to give some love to in the past, but we want to bring a spotlight to now and show off and remind the world how good these games can be. So, let's start off with Jam. What was your back catalogue favourite for the year?
I had a bit of trouble with this one, but I ended up settling on Human Fall Flat.
What is Human
this-
Fall Flat?
It is great fun. It's a little multiplayer puzzler where you navigate these environments with like a little sack puppet person, human with no fingers, like a little lump person, and you control their arms independently, and you can make them grip on things. So it's all cutesy. It's 3-dimensional, and you run around and you can like manipulate objects basically using their 2 arms, well, hands in air quotes that you can't see. Basically, we were looking for something to play, as is our New Year's Eve tradition for all of the nerds who don't have plans. We jump online and we find something fun that everyone can play together. And we ended up settling on this.
It was a real good time.
It was so much fun because we didn't know what to expect. We were having server troubles. But once we all got kicked it off, it was great. It starts really simple. You're like gripping blocks together and pushing and pulling them to move them out of a way or onto a button so that you can open a door. Like incredibly basic. And then we almost missed midnight completely because we were having such a laugh as the complexity built and as we were just being more and more incompetent. Like it's got ragdoll physics. So if you fail, your little guy gets flung off like the level, which has no bottom. It's floating in the air and he falls and then he comes down from the sky and lands back in the starting spot. By the end of the night, it was like Luke, Jason, and I left, and we had this crane for sea containers.
Oh, this was awesome.
We were trying to maneuver over a sea container and hook 4 chains delicately into the corners.
At 2 a.m.
Keeping the tension just right. Yeah, at about 2 a.m. New Year's Day. Like, eyes bleeding and laughing our asses off because it was just, it's incredible. It's silly. And I've picked it up again with some friends since. I think I introduced Ari to it, and we had a ball just running through it again, looking for areas that I hadn't seen before and getting past the crate because that's where we ended up logging off that time. It's just this really fun little multiplayer game to muck around in with friends, and it's hilarious, especially when you start like gripping each other to try and throw each other off the edge.
The way it feels to control is like when you
fun.
fall asleep at your desk like late at night and your entire body goes numb and then you can't actually get up to go to bed because your entire body won't respond to. Oh, just me? Okay, cool. Yep.
Like, have you played Gang Beasts?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's that kind of.
Is that
little
the game
person
that I
on
play
screen.
alone at night?
No.
Oh dear.
It's
I don't
similar to
want
Game
to
Beasts.
know.
Same.
Oh, okay.
Adrian, you're up
Yes.
next. Your back catalogue favourite, please.
Yeah, so no surprise to anyone that's listened to the last couple episodes of our podcast, but it's Warframe. I was surprised when I looked back and discovered that Warframe was released in 2013. So
You're
it's
kidding me?
certainly
2013?
backlog.
Really? Holy
Yeah,
I'm pretty
moly.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
It was a launch title on PS4.
Holy shit. No,
Yeah.
I don't doubt you, but now that I think of it, that's amazing. Holy moly. Whoa.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So when I thought of back catalogue, I was like, well, it's pretty back as you can get as far as, an old game that we wanted to dust off. And I do remember dipping into it like a couple of years ago and just being like, what is this? What is this shit? And not even like engaging with it at all. And
That
then,
was me and Feb.
yeah. But yeah, as time goes on, I know for me, getting into a game like Warframe is a lot like getting into a TV series or getting into a book, where you or getting into painting miniatures
Or
where you
drug
really
addiction,
Or, Ice Smith. Yeah, starting an international crime syndicate. Matt could probably speak to us about that. But anyway, I
Sure.
find that I have to be in the exact kind of mind frame to be receptive for that kind of thing. It just so happens the stars aligned a couple of weeks ago and Warframe won me over. So, and I have a pretty strong feeling that it's going to be a bit of a long-term game for me. Mainly because I've mentioned many times before, Diablo 3 is the game that's racked up the most hours for me. But ironically, I would never tell people that I am a huge Diablo 3 fan. It's kind of strange because I don't consider myself to be a hardcore Diablo player. But if you look at the hours I put into the game and the way I play the game, I guess I probably am. So I like the idea of replacing one addiction with another and making Warframe the new thing that I focus on.
Super healthy.
Now Christian has to get it.
Yes, exactly.
It'll happen eventually. I just need to confront that reality.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll happen when you least expect it, and
Yeah.
I'll be there waiting with
That's right.
bated breath to guide you
How many
tenderly.
times have you heard
tenderly
Adrian
into
say
the
that
night.
to you?
I coax him into games sometimes too. It's a bit tit for tat.
Oh, we're all
Is
our
that why
own worst enemies when it comes to this. We're all in
It's
that.
my fault that he suffered through Fallout 76.
That's true.
Oh,
And Hearthstone, you got me into Hearthstone as
I
well.
did get you into Hearthstone as well, yeah.
Yeah,
Enjoy
yeah.
Hearthstone.
Moving
And
on.
meth.
And meth, yes, crystal meth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Speaking of meth, Luke.
Sure. I'm addictive, I know. So, back catalogue game I spent the most time on this year is actually Minecraft, but it's not my favourite pick. So, Minecraft's like a bad penny. It just keeps turning up.
Yeah, Minecraft.
Yeah. Just it's amazing how much I keep going back to that game. But my favourite this year was actually a back catalogue game that has been sitting on my pile of shame for quite some time because it comes as a major entry to a franchise, or not, a franchise and also a game type that I absolutely love, a genre, in fact. But I hadn't played it yet, which I kind of thought was like weird. But part of it was because I no longer had the console that it was available on initially, because it's a 1997 game. Until I realised that it was actually available as a back catalogue entry on Xbox One via the store there. So earlier in the year, I picked up Castlevania Symphony of the Night and played that. And holy shit, if that is not my back catalogue favourite for this year, because that game is an absolute masterpiece. My God. So if you're a fan of, Metroidvania style games, this is one of the ones that pretty much started the franchise along with the early Metroid games. The thing with Symphony of the Night, though, is that it is by far the most evolved Castlevania game of the early ones, because it doesn't have that sort of straight linear progression. There's a lot of sort of backtracking and sort of, moving around. You play as a different character. You're actually playing as Alucard, the son of Dracula, instead of one of the Belmonts. The Belmonts sort of factor into the story in a different way. And your abilities and weapons are very different. You actually equip different equipment during the game, like armor and weapons and stuff. You don't have the sort of, the Morning Star that you typically have with the other Castlevania games. It's very, very different with Alucard. You can turn into bats and like other beasts and that kind of thing to traverse different areas of the game. And the boss fights are awesome. Like some of the best cool looking character boss fights of the series. And the story, like whilst elements of it are really weirdly sort of acted, the actual story is very, very cool. The game starts off as actually replaying the very, very end of Castlevania Rondo of Blood, where, I think it's one of the Belmonts, not Trevor, Richter Belmont, actually takes out Dracula. So you actually replay that ending before the game gets started. And it's a really, really weird but cool intro into the story for this one. And later on in the game, you can actually play with the entire sort of section of the map flipped on its head in an inverted castle, which is just a bizarre mechanic, but it fits with the whole Castlevania thing really, really well. So the game's amazing. Like, I can't say enough good things about it. I am absolutely appalled that I waited so long to play it. Basically, yeah.
Cool. And if anyone wants to play it on PlayStation, they recently released a Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night twin pack that you can get off the PSN. So those two games packaged together.
On that, I would recommend, if you have the access to the Xbox back library, play it on that instead, because the port to PlayStation apparently is not quite as good. So there's a few things that they've changed.
I did hear that there was some funny thing going on with the music in the PlayStation version and a few other things.
Changed a few of the dialogue bits as well, which people were up in arms about, and I can kind of understand why, because there's some pretty key stuff that they changed. So yeah, anyway, that's that.
Okay. Matt, your back catalogue favourite, please.
Let me spin you a tale. A tale of mystery, meta, horror, and dating digital girls.
Okay, now I'm interested.
Yeah.
So earlier this year, my girlfriend Melissa was going nuts and telling me that I had to buy this game off of Steam. And I went and looked at it, and I am like, what makes you think for a second that this is the sort of game that suits me at all? Yeah. And she's like, do it, otherwise I'm going to buy it for you. So I bit the bullet, and I bought the game. And I started playing it. And for 3 hours, I was sitting there and cringing. And I'm like, why are you making me play this? What's the catch? I don't get it. I'm just writing fake poetry. Is there a neat mechanic here that I'm totally missing? And then suddenly it turned into a horror game, and I fell in love.
I'm so proud of you, Matt, for playing that game.
So I'm
tell us the name of the game.
Hot tip, I am only just before that point in the game.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So,
the name of the game, Matt, drum roll, please.
Doki Doki Literature Club
That's it.
is fucking awesome. Like, it is such a good game, and like my girlfriend at the time didn't actually know that I have a history with alternate reality games. And so this was right up my alley because, and this is semi-spoilery, so you might want to cover your ears, Jam. Like, the game doesn't explicitly tell you, but if you have the game folder open while you're playing, you will see files change and update and appear, and it encourages you to explore the narrative by actually alt-tabbing out of the game and watching how the game files actually change. So as a game developer and somebody that's played alternate reality games in past, that's super exciting. And it's kind of also a theme of my awards this year is that a lot of the games that I'm choosing are ones that have really inspired me. And Doki Doki Literature Club actually inspired the Global Game Jam game we made earlier this year, which I think I've talked about in past, which is basically a game where we fictionally created this AI that generated out like Google-esque login puzzles.
The captcha
and then it
thing.
turned out, the reCAPTCHA thing, and the AI became sentient and basically was begging for you to help murder it. And you had to go online and actually do searches and go into Google Maps and that sort of thing to actually figure out how to progress in the puzzles. Like, they started actually getting really meta. And that is Doki Doki Literature Club. Like, it is this amazing meta game that is so incredibly cleverly designed, and from everything I've heard, is actually kind of this sort of prologue or testing out a lot of the mechanics and ideas that they have for this larger game. And I'm super excited to play that. Because, Doki Doki Literature Club is not the sort of game that I would normally play. I'm terrible with horror games. I hate them. I would never play a dating game and tell anybody about it. but no, it's really good. I love it.
Did you play Undertale, Matt?
I did play Undertale, yes.
Because, there's a lot of some similar stuff going on there with game files and whatnot at the end of Undertale.
Yep.
But
I hear it's all the prequel to Frog Fractions 2, but yeah.
well, Frog Fractions 2 is already out. You can watch a documentary on it on NoClip. So finally, my back catalogue favourite for the year was Assassin's Creed Origins.
Nice.
So if you must have been 4 or 5 episodes ago now, maybe more, I went on and on about my love for this game, and in particular the main character Bayek. If this game had come out in 2018, Bayek would have been my favourite character of the year. There's just something special about this game and the setting and Bayek as a character that really grabbed me and has still left a mark on me. I still think about the game now and then, and has this kind of tragic undertone to the game. It's very themed on worlds changing, and similar to Red Dead 2 in a way. The old world being washed away and a new world being ushered in, and characters having to come to terms with that. And then there's a lot of stuff in there to do with like grieving parents, and similar into God of War in a way there. It kind of pulls in the relationship between a father and son and similar things to God of War. And I loved Assassin's Creed Origins, and it's definitely my back catalogue favourite for the year.
I really want to play that game. Like, really, really want to play that game.
Sam.
Nice.
Well done. Well, the next one I am presenting, and this is going to be interesting. I'm very keen to hear your responses. It's most emotional experience. So tell us what evoked the feelings in your cold, dead heart, Luke.
So, I mean, this is all about things that could be within a game itself, or just to do with experiences throughout the year in gaming. Now, in terms of an emotional experience that affected me from a game, the one that I would say I'm actually not going to say because I suspect it might be. I have a theory that it might be the same as Matt, so I'll leave it for him to describe.
Oh no! If go ahead and say it, because if it is,
okay,
then I'll let you know.
It's kind of my runner-up. It's not the most, but one that did affect me deeply during the year was the finale in Marvel Spider-Man. So how that story plays out with Otto.
Do I need to block my ears?
No, I won't go into specifics, but
I'm just going to say runner-ups are for cowards. So
I'm a fucking coward, Christian. There you go. I'll own it. No, all right, most emotional experience of the year for me. Now, if you guys know me well, one thing you know that I love is feeling hyped. I absolutely
Yes.
love the feeling that
You
I
are a
get.
hype man,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I'm definitely a hype man. I love the feeling of excitement. I love the infectious enthusiasm that comes around like a big hype moment in the industry or an announcement or a reveal or something like that. And I had one this year that got me absolutely out of my seat, like fucking fist pumping the air with excitement. And that was at a little event earlier in the year called QuakeCon, where the full big gameplay reveal of Doom Eternal happened. And I lost my shit when I saw that thing because holy fuck, that game looks amazing. It wasn't just the gameplay sort of looking good. It was the fact that they've taken the Doomslayer, a character that I love dearly because I love the hell out of the 2016 Doom, and they've made him faster, angrier, more deadly. He's one of the most deadly characters in the entire fucking universe already. They've just made him even more lethal by giving him a grappling claw on the end of his shotgun. You know, huge big bad enemies that he's still ripping and tearing his way through. They've got these cool new mechanics in the game, like the invasion mechanic, where other players are going to be able to invade as demons and fight you, and you can sort of take them out. And you know, just the worlds, like the fact that they built out the Doom universe in weird and interesting ways, and they've actually got human characters sort of in the game in different sort of cinematic shots and things. You see an orbital-sized BFG, the BFG 6000 or 9000, I forget which one it is. It's many thousands of whoop-assedness. It just, the whole thing looks fucking amazing. They showed a lot of the concept art for some of the expanded Doom universe they're building as well. And just that final scene that they ended the gameplay reveal on, where they show the Archvile, like the giant demon with the flaming fists just sort of stepping out of this huge hatch and getting ready to just lay waste to everything around him. And then all of a sudden, you bring up the pommel of a sword that I'm pretty sure you actually pick up in the original Doom game, and all of a sudden it lights up into this giant demon blade. That was the most fucking hype moment I've seen in anything this year. It just was amazingly, amazingly exciting. So, yeah, Doom
I
Eternal
believe
reveal.
you.
It was, oh my God, it made me feel so
the most
good.
Luke response ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the only thing that would make that response like perfect is if it was blaring Fear Factory while you were frothing at the mouth.
Man, you
Explaining
say that, but the
game.
Doom soundtrack is about on par with some of my favorite Fear Factory stuff. Mick Gordon's work is amazing. I cannot wait to listen to that soundtrack. It's going to be absolutely baller. So yeah, I'm hyped.
Okay. So let's follow this up with Adrian.
Yeah.
What evoked the feels for you?
Yeah,
this year?
I had this it was a really intense emotional experience I had this year for a game that like really blew me away. Like as soon as I started playing it, I was just like, whoa, like it was fucking Fallout 76, okay? And the emotion that I'm describing is complete and utter betrayal and a gut-wrenching, vomit-inducing hatred is what my emotional response was. So
I love how balanced we've been so far.
I imagine most of the picks for this category will be like, oh, I had a flowery time in this game and it was gentle and it lit candles and took my virginity. Fallout 76 is bar none the worst gaming experience I've ever had, and that's why it's the most emotional experience for me. I've never picked up a game before and hated it as much as I hated that. I won't go on and on because otherwise I won't stop, but
refer to a couple of episodes ago.
Yes.
Yeah. As soon as I saw the word emotional, I was like, without a doubt, it's the most emotional I've been all year when it comes to a video game.
And I love how you've only got yourself, Christian, to blame.
Yeah.
No, I don't hold Christian accountable. He may have, because it came from a place of love and friendship. We wanted to play a great multiplayer game together, which is what makes it all the more emotionally scarring, is that like the game tricked me into thinking I was going to have a good time with my friend. And all it did was like lead me around the corner into a dark alleyway and beat the shit out of it. And I don't appreciate that.
I think
like it when games do that
where
to
the
me.
story needs to end is because Christian has effectively robbed you of that fantastic multiplayer sort of team-up experience. He needs to come good by playing Warframe with you.
Yeah.
Son of a
That
bitch.
sounds fair.
Yeah,
It's just equitable.
yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might actually hold him to that now that you mention it.
All right then, Christian, what was yours? Was it the devastation of Fallout 76?
No, mine wasn't. And it's something that's much more akin to Adrian's mocking, holding my hand and lighting candles for me moment. So there was only one game this year that actually brought tears to my eyes. And strangely enough, that game was Tetris Effect.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
it's hard to articulate exactly how a Tetris game could make me so emotional, but the emphasis is on that, like, Tetris Effect is more a performance art piece in some ways than a Tetris game. So just the music and the visuals, and it's actually a lot like Journey. In a weird way, it's like Journey. Where
I know what you mean.
It kind of just holds your hand through this experience, and you take it piece by piece, and it's just a lovely, tune to the ears, and the atmosphere is amazing. But then the actual moment that is right at the end. So the very last level of the game, it's of the Journey mode, is it's about like 4 times longer than any of the other levels, so it has this kind of endurance feeling to it, and as you're struggling to finish this last level, you can feel yourself getting so in the zone because the game's going so fast and the music is amping up, and you're really having to give it everything you've got and persevere, and then when you finally like break through and finish the last line, the world kind of just like explodes around you into stars and sunbeams, and there you can hear like birds chirping, and there's children laughing, and there's all this weird sort of soundscape happening. And this was in VR, remember, as well. So you're flying through the stars in this weird soundscape, and then there's this amazing like remix of the title track, like the most famous song from Tetris Effect that plays, and it's this really sweet piano rendition with this beautiful female vocalist singing, and then the credits start rolling up, and you're still in this kind of galactic network of stars, and it shows you the Earth's like rotating in front of you, and this beautiful music playing, and it was just quite emotional, and it really felt like the end of a journey, and yeah, it brought tears to my eyes. I loved it.
I feel like you've literally just described a Tetris orgasm to us. That's exactly what it
It kind of was. Yeah, it kind of was.
That's surely what they were going for.
Yeah, previously you were all blocked up and then you just let it go. So
I put an order in with Santa.
So before you ask me, Jam, I want you to go first. Because your choice was one of my runners-up, so...
but Christian said runners-ups are for pussies.
That's why I'm letting you go first.
Right. I didn't say pussies.
You're also a coward. Let's just own it, Jam. Just roll with it.
Okay, all right. So my most emotional experience was with a game that I played with Luke. We streamed it, so there is a record.
Oh, yes.
Getting emotional with Luke doesn't sound very pleasant.
I mean, yeah. Right? It was A Way Out. And the most amazing thing about the whole experience was I didn't pay for the game. Because it's... No, it astounds me still when I think about it.
It was good,
It took us 2 playthroughs to get through, and it's because it's mandatory co-op split screen because of the way the game's designed. You have to play it with a friend. So the way they set it up was if one person owns the game, they can gift access to a friend. Friend can download it for free. They just need like the friend access code to join their game. So I hopped into Luke's game. We picked the characters kind of randomly, Leo and Vincent. And then we spent, was it about 5 hours all up?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Playing through this story of these 2 guys who had unknown pasts, weird stuff was going on. They were both in prison, and we had to cooperate very carefully and build this partnership of trust to work through these really interesting levels together.
Building a partnership of trust alone is a really amazing experience for Jam and I, so,
Yeah, right? We hardly yelled at each other, except I think when did you blow up a car, or was that a different game?
No, we actually worked like a fucking team this time. It was amazing.
It was extraordinary, and we barely goofed, right? And we worked through this really interesting plot where the characters, just the depth of the characters built, and you slowly learn more and more. It has fascinating transitions where it's not always both of you with an equal balance of focus. Sometimes the other character will fade out and become part of the background, depending on what was happening on screen. And in some of the action scenes, it would shift between, and the transitions were extraordinary in some of those sequences. And so one of us would be furiously trying to do this quick time event to not screw up, and the other one's cheering them on, and it was so extraordinary. And then, no spoilers, but at the end, oh my God. Yeah. I was not prepared.
Yeah. So
it was so good.
I totally forgot this game was this year. Like, oh my God. That's
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved it, but it seems like a lifetime ago that we played that.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I haven't paid for this game, but I know one day I'm going to want to play it with one of my siblings, and I will happily purchase it and have that experience. I'll probably try play Vincent this time just to get a feel for the other side. But yeah, very well put together.
So when I say runner-up, I should say it was there for consideration for me, because I played A Way Out with my girlfriend. And yeah, when I was writing down like my thoughts on different games that or events that kind of fit for the award this year, I literally worded A Way Out as that ending sucked, holy shit. Because like it emotionally sucked. And it kind of occurred to me that like even at the time, like we were both struck and both crying, and anybody who's played A Way Out at that ending probably knows why we'd be crying over it. But it made me kind of realize that it felt unfair, and that's why I didn't end up choosing it this
And it was
year.
difficult.
It was very difficult. It was incredibly difficult. And like it felt like one of those things where there should have been a third outcome to the two possible outcomes.
That would have been cheap, I think.
Can I just say, I would love to see Adrian and Christian play this game together. I reckon you two would be
Oh, yeah.
really entertaining to play. Yeah.
That would be.
I was thinking it. Yeah.
But then I was thinking, maybe I should go with the joy and surprise I felt while playing Rage 2 at PAX Australia this year, because I went into that game not expecting great things. But at the end of it, like the most emotional experience for me kind of gets summarized in a phrase: when you help somebody, you help everybody. And that was all the way through Marvel's Spider-Man for me. So the game really sets up this phrase and keeps on repeating it at you all the way through. And it's just like, oh yeah, this super heroic thing, you know? Like it's Marvel's Spider-Man's version of with great power comes great responsibility, right? And then when I finished Spider-Man, I realized that it's Marvel's Spider-Man's version of with great power comes great responsibility for our generation, right? It's almost like a nice way of describing the trolley problem, right? And that's the way the game kind of plays it out. And the moment at which it really comes back and hits you what exactly they were building up by repeating that phrase over and over again, it crushed me. And it crushed me so much that while I was considering what my most emotional experience was going to be, I went back and I watched a bunch of videos on A Way Out and also Spider-Man, and only one of those videos made me cry, and that's why Spider-Man has my most emotional experience this year.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh.
The ending of that game is a kick to the nether regions for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta play so many games, guys. I'm so far behind.
Like,
You're
there's
selling them
multiple
all.
reasons.
Except
There's
Warframe.
multiple reasons. Like, there's so many emotional moments in Spider-Man, but that one moment and that phrase has stuck with me since playing.
Am I dead inside? Because I can't even remember. Like, don't say it because it's probably a spoiler. But I played through Spider-Man. I don't remember feeling anything. I was just like, oh yeah, this is Spider-Man. like I'm not trying to just be contrarian for the point of it. Like, I honestly remember playing through that game and not being emotionally invested in it at all, just enjoying it as a Spider-Man game. But I don't remember any scene making me go, oh. I was just like, oh yeah, this looks
Not
good.
too far through, so shall I take my headset off for a moment?
no, I think for the benefit of everybody else, we should avoid it.
Okay.
No, I don't think we're going to spoil anything.
But Adrian, the answer is yes.
Offline.
Yeah.
I'm in between
I
you
bring
guys.
it up because it's just so very interesting hearing about how it was your most emotional moment.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember. I can barely remember the game, to be honest.
I think
Like,
maybe one of the
really
things at
interesting.
play here
Yeah.
is like the level of exposure to Spider-Man. Because Adrian, you've been a huge Spider-Man fan for most of the time that I've known you. In fact, I've borrowed Spider-Man graphic novels from you on a number of occasions. And I know that you know the lore really, really well, but for someone like me and perhaps Matt, like I know Spider-Man well, but I haven't kind of immersed myself in it to the level that I feel like I've overexposed. Like when I go and absorb Spider-Man content now, it's still a novelty because I haven't absorbed that much in respect to other things. So
sure, that could be it. Yeah, that could be it. I mean, I've like I said, I've got huge Spider-Man comic book collections that are emotional. So by comparison, perhaps, like playing through Spider-Man, there was nothing in there that surprised me or took me by emotionally by surprise. It was just like, I almost found it very predictable the entire way through.
Yeah, it's probably relative to your knowledge, I'd say.
Could be. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, that was awesome.
All right. Well then, we can move on to the last one for tonight, which is favourite small game. And I know we've been having a bunch of discussions about what exactly a small game is, because originally this category was like favorite indie game, I think.
Well, we never did an indie game category. What we had previously was the favorite party game of the month of the year, which with the challenge of us doing that this year, of course, is that we have had a bit of a change of lineup with our cast. So not all of you have been present for each one of our party game discussions this year. So it's a bit unfair to kind of run it the same way. So
yes. Yep. And then there was a bunch of discussion behind the scenes about, what is an indie game? And I think that's actually a topic we can discuss probably next year when we start doing podcasting again. But so favorite small game is basically your favorite game that's not full price is essentially, I think, how we burned down those rules. Like nice and simple, straightforward, no argument about what is and isn't indie. If it's not full price, then it probably classifies. So why don't you go ahead first, Christian?
Me. Okay, so my favorite small game of the year is from an indie studio. It's a Czech-based indie studio called Beat Games, and it is Beat Saber. So this is the VR game that I raved about just a couple episodes ago. Game is just so awesome, and the best VR game I've played probably ever. And you only need to rewind a couple episodes to hear me go on at length about why I love Beat Saber so much. So it is a small game. It's only on the PSN store and the PC, and it's not full price, and it's worth every penny.
Awesome. How about you, Adrian?
Yeah, so I just realised actually while listening to the podcast, I was like, oh, I know what it is. My favourite small game, and originally I was going to say Dead Cells, but after thinking about it, I've realised there's a game that I've poured myself into far more than any other game this year, even Warframe by comparison. And it's on mobile, and it's Kingdom Rush. And the reason I can say it for 2018 is because a new one just came out like a couple of weeks ago. And for those unaware, Kingdom Rush is just a tower defense game. But I've been playing it every time I pick up my phone, I'm playing it. And I just realized that that's probably my favorite small game of the year. I've just found it super addictive and really enjoyable. And that's really it, I suppose, for that pick. It's just really interesting that I didn't even think of mobile games until it just suddenly came to me. And I was like, oh, of course, that's the small game that I've definitely enjoyed most this year. So, I've really loved it, to be honest.
The moment you mentioned mobile game, I was expecting a reference to Child Shards again.
That's perhaps my favourite podcast meme of the year.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes, I will agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah, seconded. All right, what about you, Luke?
Well, I mean, I can't sort of say mobile game because nothing else gets a look in on my phone besides Hearthstone, so that's just completely out. But Adrian, I got you back. My favourite small game of the year is actually Dead Cells. So I fucking love Dead Cells. It's it's all the Metroidvania sort ofness that I love. It's a really dynamic combat system with a lot of variety in the weapons and gear that you have. It's got those roguelike elements without sort of overstaying their welcome, where you do feel like you're progressing each time because you are sort of slowly unlocking additional items in your collection of things that can pop up during each run. And just the visuals are just a really cool sort of old school style of creepy sort of medieval castle sort of backgrounds where, you as a central character, you basically, you have like a weird kind of sentient moss plant for a head. It's so bizarre. But the best thing about the game is just how well it plays and how good it feels to play. Like it's just a very, very smooth action platformer, and I just can't get enough of it. It's such a great game. And I was playing it ever since it was in early access. So when it came out for real, I was all over it. So yeah, Dead Cells, highly recommend.
That's definitely a game I need to catch up to.
Oh yeah.
Same.
It's hard as balls too. Real difficult. So
Awesome. And Jam, what's yours?
Mine is a party game of the month. We reviewed it back in September, episode 143. And it's Cultist Simulator.
Oh, well done.
Adrian's second favourite game of the year.
Yeah, complete truth. I actually
Cultist
considered
Simulator.
this one too. I really did. So,
I loaded this game up expecting nothing. It's a card game. I don't get it. What? And for a game where you shift cards around with some flavor text, I can't believe I built up such a story. I was so engrossed in what was happening. And for a game where you can pause at any time, there was so much tension because I couldn't undo and I couldn't change my mind once I'd placed a card. And things kept escalating and new surprises kept popping up. And the mechanics of it, it's just so different to anything I've ever played. And I got invested in what was happening, and then I got frustrated when I failed. It's astonishing. And I'm so glad it was recommended. I've forgotten to check who recommended it to us, but thank you.
It was
because
me.
It was Matt, yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's right. That was just before you joined.
Yeah.
Bravo, sir, because I honestly, Slay the Spire was runner-up because I also didn't expect anything out of that game.
Ooh, that's a good game.
And I was just so pleasantly delighted by how very quickly I got obsessed with that game. It's great.
It is a very good game, but unfortunately, you're all wrong about what the best small game of the year is because it's Red Dead Redemption 2. No,
How could we?
So funnily enough, my favorite small game of the year is actually also Cultist Simulator. You would never know that because I suggested it. But yeah, no, I have to echo that. Like, I almost picked Return of the Obra Dinn, and I'm not going to say it's a runner-up, but I ended up picking Cultist Simulator because, again, I find myself super influenced by a lot of games that I played this year. And Cultist Simulator and the way that it kind of lets you formulate your own narrative through playing it is such a unique and interesting game. And it's certainly flawed in some of its design, but I think a lot of that comes down to it's almost purposefully inaccessible to some people. And I kind of like that in some ways. Like it's like, if you don't get it, well then we don't give a shit. We go ahead and refund it, Like, it does not hold your hand. And I certainly remember when we were actually discussing it, like it was one of those things where I really struggled to actually get into it. But then having gone back and played it and been taking notes and everything, I want to get back into that game and unlock the mysteries of it, because it's just this really neat kind of investigative narrative that I don't think has ever been done before in the way that it's been done. And like, favorite small game, like, indies are always trying out super unique things in comparison to big AAAs. And that makes this decision really, really difficult. But Cultist Simulator just kind of is a standout for me for that reason. So yeah.
how bizarre is it that we nearly ended up with three of us picking this game? That's so strange.
So good.
Yeah, amazing. All right. Well, is that everybody? I think we've covered off 5 small games.
I think that's all of us.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right. So that is the end of part 1.
Wow.
So for everyone who's listening, hope you've enjoyed that so far. Looking ahead next week, we're going to be covering our favorite game feature or mechanic. We're going to be chatting about our favorite moment or sequence in a video game this year or in general. We're going to be chatting about our biggest surprises and our biggest disappointments and capping it all off with our favorite game of the year. So some good chats to look forward to. So yeah, feeling pretty good about how we all worked out with these ones tonight. That was some super interesting looks back into the things that I think some of us had forgotten about. So yeah. And generated a whole bunch
2018's
more.
been a big year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just going through and marking off, okay, still got to play that, still got to play that, still got to play that.
Oh, God, the pile of shame.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's all right, because Christian will be able to mark off one of those in the next week, because he's going to jump in and play some Warframe with us. You heard it here first, so yeah.
Maybe.
Nice. All right, well, we have run long, so thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, team, for putting your thoughts together on those games. We'll be back in 7 days' time for our ultimate episode of the year, the finale for Party Loaded 2018. In the meantime, you can get us at all the usual places, so hit us up at mail@partyloaded.com. Our main site is at partyloaded.com, Twitter at partyloadedshow, and partyloaded on Facebook. We are also streaming every so often on twitch.tv/partyloaded.
I reckon we have to get a stream going of Adrian and Christian playing a way out together.
That would be a really good
100%.
one. Absolutely.
I will fund this.
Yeah, I think you guys would enjoy the teamwork in that game for sure, and I want to watch that happen. So nice.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yep, absolutely. We're all our own best enablers, aren't we? So
Yep.
yeah, that pans out. All right. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for listening. Thanks, team, once again. We'll see you back next week. Until then, good night.
Good
Ciao.
night.
Bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.